What's worse, according to the local union, is that 911 calls into Cleveland here continue to increase each year, while staff has not. She then sped down East 25th here with the man still clinging onto that hood. She then crashed into this park bench.
This is what a championship win looks like here on West 25th, guys.
Never have I witnessed someone so excited about confetti. Forget about the players. It was really the confetti.
It's a special day for one local family. It's the day the Thistlethwaites finally got to take home their twin girls.
Up to 17 buildings have been evacuated here at Case Western Reserve University. I'd like to know why you continue to take taxpayer money while refusing to clean up these filthy homes.
It has to do with time, money, and manpower. Right now, the prosecutor's office is taking months to make an arrest after they get a DNA hit on an old rape kit.
And in the event that Issue 33 does not pass tomorrow, a spokeswoman for City Council tells me they don't have a backup plan yet.
Hey, this is the best party I've been to in a long time. Look at these fans.
It was not the first time Cleveland police have been involved in a confrontation with a child. Kristin Volk, you learned of a victim who is not only a teenager, but one with a disability. I've been digging into court cases and lawsuits looking for the pattern involving Cleveland officers. And I uncovered the story of a Cleveland teenager with Down syndrome who was chased down by police when they mistook him for a robbery suspect.
911, what is your emergency?
I just was robbed.
A call for help sent police on the trail.
He threatened to kill me. I could probably describe him. It was a white male, about 5'8" at the most.
But who did they nab? Meet Juan Ortiz, 16 at the time. He stands 5'2".
I'll keep it.
And he has Down syndrome. Police handcuffed him for robbery.
I had to suffer a lot watching that. Very hard for me watching him, looking at me, trying to say something or trying to say help me, and I couldn't even do nothing.
Juan's dad, Ramon, hopelessly watched his son get arrested by two Cleveland cops, Brian Casimir and Dan Kristin. With his disability, Juan had no idea what was going on. It all went down here, outside of this West Side apartment complex where the Ortiz family used to live. August 16th, 2010.
Kept hollering, you got the wrong one. That's not right. He's not the one. But still happened.
Nina Kennedy, the manager of the complex, witnessed the whole thing.
It scared me so bad.
She says officers Casimir and Kristin pinned Juan to a hot, running car in the heat of the summer for at least a half hour. Then she says the cops yelled at Juan's parents.
If you can't speak English here, take your ass back to where you come from. That's pretty much what they said. But they also used the F word.
What they did, it was awful.
Juan ended up in the hospital. His injuries, minor, but the emotional trauma, much deeper. The day after, Ramon filed this complaint against the officers here with Cleveland's Civilian Police Review Board. But we found that the system to address citizen complaints like Ramon's lacks transparency and efficiency. And those complaints languish in a maze of bureaucracy and finger-pointing.
Please, if they could discipline these officers and stop them from working in the streets, I will be happy on that part.
Just 2.5 months after the incident, the review board did recommend discipline for officers Casimir and Kristin in this charge letter dated November 9th, 2010. Here, the board called for a simple written reprimand and re-instruction. It stated that the cops handcuffed Juan and yelled to his parents, "You're lucky we didn't shoot him. Shut the F up."
That file came to the chief's office for discipline in July of the following year, 2011.
Mike McGrath was Cleveland's police chief at the time. He says it took 8 months for him to get that letter, prepared by the board's sister agency, the Office of Professional Standards, or OPS.
Why it took that long to come out of the Office of Professional Standards, I don't know.
He wouldn't know. We discovered ourselves that the review board operates under a cloud of ambiguity, and so does OPS, which investigates complaints made against police. Damon Scott leads the agency.
When anyone looks at this looks like you haven't done much of anything. Look at all these, a whole page worth of blank spaces here.
no decision.
Well, that is something that my office is addressing.
These documents, which list those complaints and the status of the investigation, show the board has only ruled on 46 of 509 cases in the last 2 years.
Part of the reason that I was hired was to address some of the cases that were not investigated or that were dormant prior to my tenure.
That's what Scott told me a year ago. And 2 months ago, when we tried to ask him about the lack of improvement, he would not sit down with us.
Is there anything you would like me to use in the story or say in the story regarding why there doesn't seem to be any progress made here with complaints and the rulings on complaints?
And as for the review board,
because of the number of cases that the Office of Professional Standards receives each month, we are not able to address each case as it comes in.
Thomas Jones, the board's chairman, first claimed he and his 6 colleagues just can't keep up with the workload, then later backtracked.
So you have all of these cases, most of these cases in here that you have yet to decide on?
I don't know. I have not looked at these cases. Like I said, some of them may have been disposed of at this point, but may not have been posted.
Between the review board, OPS, and Cleveland Police, 5 years later, the Ortizes still wait for closure. And this charge letter still goes unanswered.
They're not doing nothing. They're not really doing nothing.
Ramon tells me the very sight of a police officer still triggers a terrifying flashback in his son.
He goes wild. He goes very wild at nighttime.
Ramon has flashbacks of his own, visions of the moment when he says the officers held his son down.
Even when I was saying to him, he's a Down syndrome, he's a child. He didn't pay attention. He seems to enjoy what he was doing.
At the time, the officers didn't know he had Down syndrome. Afterwards, we found out that he had Down syndrome.
Did this case slip through the cracks?
No, I don't believe so.
On behalf of the officers, the city says it has no comment because the case is ongoing. But for the first time, the Cleveland Police Department apologized to Juan and his family.
It was a mistake by the Division of Police.
Officers Casimir and Kristin are still on the Cleveland police force. The Ortiz family sued them 4 years ago, at the same time that former Chief McGrath tells me he was notified of the review board's decision to discipline the officers. Because the two coincided, any discipline has yet to happen, because when the lawsuit was filed, the city tells me it was their policy to hold off on discipline while all pending civil and criminal matters are settled.
It is the ripple effect of gun violence, and it is happening right here in our own community. Tonight, Only News 5 takes you inside a local level 1 trauma room.
A place where doctors, nurses, and medics work tirelessly to save gunshot victim after gunshot victim. A majority of them young African-American men. The stress of it all is experienced in some of the most personal ways.
News 5's Kristin Volk spoke to those right on the front lines and spent night after night with them in the ER. This is how gun violence affects them.
The shots rang out.
3 men were shot. 5 people were shot.
4 shootings and another shooting.
It used to be where
Hold still.
did anybody get shot today or whatever, but
One went to the right hip.
now it seems like you come in next. How many? You'll hear 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's another night in Cleveland, another
105/74.
gunshot victim in the University Hospital's trauma room.
Does it hurt there? It's not only is it physically taxing, it's emotionally taxing as well.
This patient, 2 bullet holes,
Hey, are you awake?
shot on the east side,
We'll take good care of you.
dropped off in front of the ER by someone who sped away. Right on the heels of this gurney
4 minutes, thank you.
is another one.
Does it hurt here?
Also,
It's on the side.
shot twice.
One to the hip, too.
The patient stabilized.
Let me give him pain meds.
Then it's back to the operating room.
How do you keep it all together every night?
Here? I don't always. Some of us cry. I probably cry like once a month.
AJ Sani is a nurse here in the ER.
16 and an 18 in the
So is Catherine Ulinek.
Karen, can you pull my fentanyl?
Both work overnights.
You know, I grew up playing in the park and being outside all the time, and then I come here and it makes me fearful sometimes to have kids in this world these days, you know.
Curtis Pope has kids.
I just pray that, my kids never end up here.
His faith is what gets him through a job most people cannot stomach.
It can get real messy at times.
You'll find Curtis in the trauma room too, but only after everyone has left. He cleans and sanitizes.
You have to look very closely.
After each patient.
Now and then I'll just close my eyes, say a soft prayer for him.
Gail Crowell has the same job.
Are there days and times where you lose hope?
No. You got to be strong. You can't be no wimp. You got to be real strong in this kind of job.
Hours later,
what's Mom's name?
Another gunshot victim,
Take some deep breaths.
all in the same day. This repetition of patients triggers sadness and frustration in some, numbness in others.
I think that being around it for so long desensitizes you.
There's little time to feel or think.
With shootings, it may be the golden 30 minutes.
Dr. Keith Clancy
Get his films up for us.
started his career as a paramedic in the South Bronx 30 years ago.
When a gunshot victim comes in, I really focus on stopping the hemorrhage, getting someone taken care of. I don't have a lot of time to reflect on who the patient is.
It's like a battlefield.
Triage.
The wounded just keep coming. The injuries, severe.
Give him 25% now.
Fear of retaliation, very real.
At any particular point in time, we don't know if somebody's coming through the door with a gun.
That's why armed security guards stand by if rival gang members show up as victims or visitors.
We really have to be careful.
It's not a job for just anybody.
Where'd you put as GCS at this point?
It is so much more than just a job
13, 14.
for so many people here.
We're gonna move them right now.
It is a life-changing experience.
It makes you a little bit rougher around the edges.
The darkest moments creep up.
It hurts. Okay.
Only
Hurry, let's get it all done.
after the carnage is gone.
This whole situation, this hospital, it make you think about your life.
When there is time,
Make you think about everything around you.
to reflect.
I've become a little more humble.
Hey, bud, look at me.
You know, I've seen a lot. I don't know how long I'll be able to do this, but I think I can handle it for a while. At least I'll try.
The medical team here at UH saved all 3 gunshot victims from our story. And the staff here also tells us that there is grief counseling available to all employees. In Cleveland, I'm Kristin Volk, News 5. It looks like this. There are 25 green capsules in this packet that we bought at a Cleveland smoke shop this afternoon. The cost, $15. But for one Euclid woman, the effects of these capsules cost her so much more.
And that's how quickly my life went downhill.
In just a month, Kaylee went from being clean to consumed with addiction again.
I'd wake up and that was one of my first thoughts was like, what am I gonna do today? Because I want this and I didn't want to do anything unless I could have it.
The 22-year-old who did not want her face shown is talking about this, kratom, an herb ground into powder form, and it's legal in Ohio.
I got up to the point where I was taking like $50 a day of it.
Kaylee then got kicked out of rehab for her heroin addiction. But Kaylee told me what's worse, kratom made her want to do heroin again.
It's a tease, and that's why I think it's a big way to relapse.
I'm concerned that it has all the potential to reach a dangerous level.
Bill Denahan runs the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County. He says people are using kratom as a natural painkiller. They're also using it to reduce drug cravings.
At first, it kind of gives you like a little bit of energy, but it also relaxes you.
Additionally, this can cause paranoia, hallucinations.
But the American Kratom Association revealed this big misunderstanding about the supplement.
It can be a curative for a lot of ailments, both mental and physical.
However, it was anything but that for Kaylee.
If you continued on kratom, where do you think you'd be today?
I'd be back on heroin. I'd have no money. I would end up dead.
Indiana, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Vermont have already banned kratom. The Ohio Attorney General's office tells me it has investigated one kratom case in the state so far, and that was in Fairfield County. As for Kaylee, she is back in rehab. Live in Cleveland, I'm Kristin Volk, News Channel 5.